Thank you for joining us for another discussion with Sylvan franchise owners. I am your host, Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com, where if you're on the journey of looking for the right franchise opportunity for you, you can use that site as a resource as you go through your journey of figuring out how to become a franchisee and then how to become a successful franchisee. Today, I want to bring in Mike and Elizabeth. Thank you both to you guys for joining us. And what I'll do is just general framework, and we're going to keep going in a round robin type discussion because I love today's topic. But Elizabeth, let's start with you. Just a little bit about your Sylvan story. What's your backdrop? Who are you? So that our audience has an intro to you.
Sure, great. So, I joined with Sylvan in January of 2020. I bought several resale centers at that time and then have since opened another center from scratch. So I now have 3 Sylvan territories and centers. Prior to joining Sylvan, I did spend over 20 years in corporate America in finance and project management type of roles. So very familiar kind of with that world, and personally was looking for something different and, ended up wanted to grow in new ways and just see more reward for my efforts. So kind of started looking into the franchise world and decided that I was passionate about education. Who knew? I have several kids, so it definitely resonated a lot with me. And that's kind of where I ended up with Sylvan.
Great. Appreciate that. Mike, what's your story?
Yeah. So my wife and I, we have a jewelry business, and we were looking for something else to sink our teeth into. And me specifically, I'm an entrepreneur by heart, and I was bouncing around in the corporate world for a while too. So I totally get that. But I was looking for something that I could have a passion into. Profit was important, but I also wanted something that I could be passionate about. And I had 2 kids, and I understood, hey, Sylvan has a passion part of this more than just the profit side. We're actually helping kids and families. So I latched onto it pretty quickly, and it just kind of flowed really well. And we were looking for something different outside of jewelry and retail, and we landed on Sylvan and haven't looked back. It's been great. So we acquired 5 centers in May of 2018. So it's been 4 years. I can't believe it. It's actually flying by. So it's crazy.
So a lot to break into, and obviously you guys are coming from a background that would fall under the bucket of corporate America, thought about franchising, landed in it, and the focus where a lot of our discussions have started with is teachers or educators who have landed into the business. So you guys take a different route. So I want to go all the way back to before Sylvan with really the mindset of let's give some insights to a buying audience on what could they learn about their own process through you guys and your stories that can hopefully impact them. So let's go back to before you're even deciding on Sylvan. Elizabeth, with you first, and then you, Mike. Like, how does franchising even come into the picture, and what was some of your perception of franchising in the very beginning stages?
So for me, franchising came into the picture because I probably have a lower risk threshold I certainly have a lower risk threshold than my husband. And so kind of jumping from the corporate world to an entrepreneurial world was a little bit more risky for me and a little bit scarier. And so I was really taken with the franchise model because I was looking for, and I think I used this and last time I talked to you, Nick, but I was looking for the business in the box model. I wanted someone that could, a company, a corporate company, because I was very familiar with that behind me, that could, train me, kind of provide me all the right steps or ingredients, if you will, that would help me create a successful business. So I was looking to be an entrepreneur, but I needed some help to get there.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah. And, for me, that's threefold. I wanted a brand that I could really get behind, something that had a brand that had some awareness, was around, was known. That was important to me. It's just brand recognition and something where I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I've started businesses before, and you literally have to do everything from scratch, new processes, new systems, new everything. And that's why I love the franchise model. A lot of that has already been developed by them, and they've fine-tuned everything. And a good franchisee and franchisor does so. So that was important to me. And look, the thing with, you can still be an entrepreneur in the franchise world, and that's why what I also loved about it, I wanted something that I could scale. That was important to me. So scalability. Could I hop in? Do they have good brand awareness? Could I scale it? Those were kind of some of the things that really stood out to me that I was really looking for in the beginning.
All right, Mike, from you, so you've decided franchising, and now you start looking into brands. Was Sylvan the only one that you looked at?
No, I looked at, to be honest, almost a dozen others. I went from education to retail to food. I even looked into the healthcare industry. And so I went down a path, and it took me a couple of years to land on Sylvan. I went and vetted a bunch of folks, all the way down from Chick-fil-A to a couple pizza franchises, and like I was saying, some home healthcare stuff as well. And I went down to discovery days. I toured, went through all sorts of different brand items, and looked for, for me, it was the awareness part was important, but also I was really trying to get the support side. How much are they going to support the people that they bring on, and how important was that to them? It was a big part of landing on Sylvan.
Okay. And Elizabeth, how many brands did you look at? How much time frame did it take from deciding franchising to now I'm ready to move forward?
Right. It probably took for me about 9 months, and I did look into quite a few other brands. I never ultimately got to another discovery day, but I did tour another brand's facilities, spent some significant time on the phone with a lot of different brands. The thing I think that resonated for me with Sylvan is that everything has to come together, kind of. So you have to feel, to Mike's point, really good about the brand. It's your reputation on the line. So you want to be aligned with a brand that has a reputation that you feel good about. And then for me, the service that we were providing was something that I could also stand behind, supporting kids. My own children have had to engage in tutoring services outside of school. I think probably most families would say that. And so we know that it's a necessary service. We know that you're helping kids succeed and building their confidence. And so that was something I felt good about versus some of the other businesses. It was really only about the profit. It wasn't a service that I was really aligned to. So, whether it was nail salons or supercuts, like haircuts or things like that, it wasn't something that I really had a passion for the way I had a passion for education.
So Elizabeth, stay on that for a second. So something I'm passionate about, but you felt the other brands are pushing profit as the number one thing. Do you feel like, is that a mistake that franchisors make? Is that, and maybe it's the in their opinion, the pathway of least resistance, like come out and say how much you can make in item 19 and use that as your marketing hook. But is that a mistake? Is that something that brands should maybe say, that's a check mark, but if we don't align culturally or from a leadership support standpoint, there's no way people are going to buy into you. Is that an accurate statement?
I would say so. I would say that profitability can vary. It just is the bottom line. So if anybody is telling you that you're going to, do X at the bottom line, I would be skeptical. I think profitability varies on location. It varies on, the particular owner and like the team that you have in place and the demographics in your area and a lot of different factors. And so you have to have more, and I think it helps to have more invested than just the bottom line.
Love that. Mike, what's your opinion on profit in the process?
Yeah, when I went through about a dozen of them, profit was always profit, and sales were obviously always the discussion. But I was always trying to look through the weeds a little bit and trying to match it up with what is their true, genuine purpose. And I think that's when we're all vetting franchisors. We have to decipher on our own what's important for the purpose part. And there were a few that had some really genuine purposes, that I had to kind of weed through and see if it really connected with myself and where I wanted to go long term. And ultimately, I landed on Sylvan. Just, the kids just tugged at my heartstring. As soon as I had kids, and I was like, oh, I totally get it. I would do anything for my kids. No wonder why these parents are in the same boat when they're in Sylvan. You do anything for your kids to bring that confidence back and build it. So for me, it was, yes, profit's important, but I had to find the purpose part of it as well and connect it. So, and I think we all have to make that decision.
I mean, the collective of both of you looking at so many brands, Mike, when you're looking at these brands' footprints, are they showing the culture purpose through their website, through their content, through their PR? Are you seeing it? Or ultimately, is that also a gap that brands need to close because you needed to go experience that in person at Discovery Day? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Very few were able to let me touch, feel, and see it. I had one. It was and I won't name it, but it was a pizza franchise, and they did a really nice job of bringing me on a tour through the corporate office, through a few of the local franchisees. So I actually got to feel, see, taste, experience what they were telling me. That went a long way. I mean, when you can actually go in and feel and see the experience, that went a long way to me versus the others were trying to tell you through their literature or a PowerPoint or whatever it may be. And that's brutally difficult, as you could guess.
Elizabeth, on your Discovery, were you seeing the passion or the culture shine through, or is it something that brands are not taking credit for?
I would say that I definitely did get that through my Discovery experience with Sylvan. Going through the resale process was a little bit different. I wasn't necessarily going through the traditional, Sylvan corporate franchise experience. So I would have liked to probably see more of that, go into centers, visit with other owners, actually see the experience live firsthand prior to purchasing. I think that would have only probably solidified my opinions of things, but it wasn't necessarily the case for me.
The first time I walked through Sylvan's office, and it's a giant building, and you're walking through and you see all the different areas that support a franchisee. I looked at that and said, if I have to identify one thing that's missing back to a prospective franchise owner, it's almost this. Like you know that Sylvan's a sizable brand because we all grew up with it in some sense, and we know it from brand awareness, but it felt like that part was missing. And so my question, Elizabeth, I'll go you first and then you, Mike. What is that something that misses in the process? Like if I'm a prospective franchisee out there and I'm looking at the brand, is that something that I'm not seeing? Is there something else that I'm not seeing because either the brand is humble about it or doesn't push it forward facing? Is there something that stands out to you, Elizabeth, that you even got in the discovery process?
Right. I just think that Sylvan's brand kind of it's kind of been around for a long time. People know it. And it's the name recognition. And so when you're starting with a lot of these franchise companies that are smaller and they're really eager and they're really looking to expand. And there's been some amazing stories of, franchises just exploding, but that name recognition definitely takes time to build and is easily tarnished in some of those cases. And so it's nice to have a company like Sylvan behind you that I think they take their brand very seriously and they work to make sure that all of their franchisees take it seriously. And we're going through processes right now where they're looking at everything to ensure, we're following all of the benchmarks and standards that they have set out for us to really make sure that the brand stays intact and doesn't suffer. So I think it's hugely important.
Mike, is there anything that you saw an aha moment, like that's what got me that wasn't present before going to Discovery Day? Or did Sylvan set it up nicely for you?
Yeah, the brand support was probably beyond wanting a good brand awareness company. That was the number one thing I looked for. But I had the benefit of dealing and owning another franchise before Sylvan, so I really understood how well a company could provide support, or a brand could provide support in that way. So when I went through some of the discovery time with Sylvan, I was brutally hard on them and really diving into everything. Like, talk to me about your marketing, talk to me about your IT, talk to me about your sales, talk to me about the corporate side. How do you support it? What does it look like? How does it feel? And, the past franchise I was with, they did an awesome job. So I was like, all right, I'm expecting this with Sylvan, but Sylvan actually went above and beyond. And not to make it sound cheesy and not to butter them up, they don't need it, but they really do go above and beyond on their support side. And, I was brutally hard on them diving into them. They answered everything really well, and they were able to show me how they provide it. Of course you could get a tour and you'd be like, well, I see 100 desks here, but how do I know that supports me? But if you can dive into it in each part of the business and get through the weeds a little bit, you can actually see they provide some robust support. And I was actually starting to connect the dots with some of the questions I was asking. And then as soon as I got involved in the brand, I saw it kind of flourish through. It's almost overwhelming, the amount of support that you can receive. So it's a good thing.
Mike, when you're going to Discovery Day, are you a yes looking for a no, or are you a no looking for a yes?
Yeah, that's an awesome way to phrase it. Yeah, not to, one of those could sound negative if you could argue that, but yeah, totally. I was looking for reasons to say no, or reasons to be like, is it too good to be true, or show me something that I don't like, or what are some of the negatives? And of course, you're trying to be positive and open-minded about it. But yeah, I'm going into it saying, all right, how good are you as a friend? You've been doing this for 40 years. You must be good, but let's show me why. So, and yeah, so my Discovery Day was, I wanted the sales pitch. I want you to sell me, and I want you to have some substance behind it. And if you can do that, I can buy into that. So, and they accomplished it.
Elizabeth, what about you? How are you approaching Discovery Day?
I think the same way. I mean, I was looking for reasons to say, that this was, do I need to say no? So I was looking for reasons to say no, but I got the benefit of still going in person, and I just think there's so much of a connection that you get with the people that are there. Not only the corporate folks that you meet, but the people around the table that are also looking at the franchise, and being able to share kind of your concerns and your questions with them, hearing their questions, really doing it as a group. And to your point, going into their corporate offices and kind of seeing all those people there and having that genuine face-to-face interaction with them. So it was an excellent experience. And I walked away from it being like, there were no no's in this, after that day.
Elizabeth, if you think back to being in a corporate career, what was the scariest part of leaving a corporate career and going into franchise ownership? And as you were going through this process, because mentally and emotionally, you got to be ready for this. So can you compare it to like going through switching jobs? Is there anything that's comparable, or is there nothing that can compare to that process?
So for me, I mean, I didn't make the decision to leave corporate and then move into this franchise world. I had already left corporate. So I had stepped out of that role a couple of years before, and I knew that I didn't want to go back into corporate. So I knew that I was looking for something else. The scariest part about it is just, the unknown, as with anything. And I think that's where, when you feel confident that you have a team of people supporting you, it can help alleviate those concerns. First you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, and that's probably similar to any job transition you've ever had. And then, there's a learning curve, and you've got to get it. The first 6 months feel like a blur, and then it starts to get better. The next 3 months are better. The next 3 months are better. And before you know it, you're feeling more comfortable in the situation. But I will say that I'm learning new things still every day, 2.5 years later. So I think that's something that is like maybe a little bit of a trademark or a hallmark of the Sylvan family, is that we're all still trying to learn all the time. And so corporate's, always providing additional trainings for us. And you may have heard it before, but hearing it again or hearing it a different way helps you to refine your processes, refine your things that you're doing to make your center perform better and, to reach better outcomes for the kids. So, it's definitely a lot of work in the beginning, I think, as anyone would expect, starting, your own business and transitioning to something new like that. But, you'll get through it, and you just have to kind of take one day at a time. And, you'll look back 6 months, a year, and you'll think, wow, I've accomplished a ton.
And it's gone fast.
And it's gone fast.
Mike, what about you, transitioning out of corporate career when you first did it? Anything that was scary about it?
Yeah, the unknown's a good word. entrepreneur at heart. It wasn't real tough for me because I was just itching for that other piece and that excitement. And I've worked for small businesses, large businesses, the corporate side. And to me, it was literally felt like sucking the soul out of me. And I could just almost feel the other side of what owning a business and being an entrepreneur was like. And I had a mentor once tell me, the toughest part is taking the leap. And what he said I'd recommend is take the leap and grow wings on the way down. And what he really meant was just go with the flow and be open-minded about it, and just dive into it. And I really took that to heart, and that went really far to me. And now to this day, I embrace the chaos, and I absolutely love it, and glad I did, for sure.
Mike, when you look back at your career, and including being a franchisee, is there a moment that stands out that made it so that you understood this was your path, or made things easier? Is there a let go moment? Is there a piece of advice that you've received? Something along the way that you're like, all right, this is the right thing for me.
Yeah, I think it took, 4 years into this now, it took probably the first 2 years. And it was like the first year was like, you're just on a roller coaster, hang on, where are we going? And the second year was like getting your feet underneath you. And then it was like after those first 2 years, there was just some reflective moments where I would sit back, and then we've built this amazing team of people that you work with, and you have these teachers, and you're serving all these students. And it's those reflective moments where you sit back and your team's doing their things, and it's business as normal, I want to say, as best as it can be. And you're just sitting back and you're thinking, well, this is what you set out to do. You're serving families, you're making profit with a purpose here, and you've built an awesome team. They're happy, they're doing their thing, and you've given them opportunities. And for me, that was those moments, and I still have those, and I try to reflect back on those often, because it reminds me of why I go through all the chaos and why I'm doing what we're doing. So for me, it's I try to take those often, and that really helps. And it's been a lot.
What about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I definitely think having the, hindsight, I guess, as it is, it's nice and it's helpful when you're in the moment and trying to make the decision of, is this right for me? Am I going to really pull the trigger on this? The thing I think that I kept coming back to was, I had a lot of stories, a lot of, scenarios that had been shared with me over time of other people who had kind of delved into the franchise world and had really been very successful with it. And I think for me, it was, if they can do it, I can do it. There's nothing special about them or different about them that made them be, successful in that scenario that doesn't hold true for me as well. And so I kind of had that mindset of like, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's kind of what got me off the fence. And, definitely now that I'm in it, it is nice to look back and kind of see what you've accomplished, and have moments of reflection that kind of say it was worth it. But, it is hard to kind of step off the fence, if you will, and take that leap. So, if you're out there and you're thinking about it, I know that we've been in that boat, and we know, and you just have to kind of take a leap of faith a little bit.
All right. I don't like asking negative questions, but I mean it in a positive way. Elizabeth, for you first, what along this journey as a franchisee would have made you fail? Like, if you would have done X or didn't do X, what would have made this not work out for you?
That's a good question. So let's see here. I think if I was undercapitalized, I would have failed. I bought 2 months before COVID. I had to shut down my centers for the first couple months. We lost a good portion of our revenue, our monthly revenue. I would say, between 90 and 95% of our revenue in the first month. Thank goodness, I think, for some of those government programs that were out there and the PPP and things like that, that definitely helped. But in the grand scheme of things, it really helped me to have more capital than they told me I needed.
Great insight, Mike.
Yeah, and I agree with the capital, by the way. But for me, it's and I've seen this a few times, and arrogance a little bit in terms of listening to your support team. in business, it can be easy sometimes to think that you know the way, or you know every little tidbit of business, and you can accomplish it all. But when I came in, I really made an effort to listen to everyone within the team, in the Sylvan team, leadership side, corporate side. And just because I had some success in business beforehand does not mean I was going to be successful in this realm. And so I really took it to heart to listen to them in the early set of ways to set up your business, marketing items, computer IT items, everything on the business realm. And that, had I not, I mean, it's so easy. It would have been easy just to fold under, and you'd be out of business in a year if you weren't listening to the people you were supposed to. So, don't think you know it all. You got to listen to the people that know what they're doing and take it to heart.
I think both are great insights. Like if I look at all the franchisees that I've evaluated from my standpoint, the capitalization side is super important. And you look at what is the cost to get into a business, and if you're just barely getting by, what that means is you don't have a reserve for a rainy day. And it doesn't mean you can't build it up over time. It just means you're going to be a little bit more strapped going into this. What my fear is for franchisees on not being capitalized is then some decisions that are made in the early stages, whether that's labor or marketing or operations, like it prevents you from possibly doing the best thing for the business to scale. And therefore it creates a challenge. And I think Sylvan, as a historical, been around for a long time brand, they're a lot more protective of not letting a franchisee with very little areas in. But I think there's like that is a hang up. And Mike, to your point, yeah, I mean, like the reality is you are somewhat buying a business in a box. Like that's why you pay a franchise fee. That's why you pay royalties. That's why you pay the fees that come associated with this, is because you're buying into a business model that's already been perfected and continues to be tweaked, which you guys have both talked about support. Therefore, if you look at this and say, well, I'm going to make the logo brown. It's like, no, you got to follow the model, because that's what then equals the success. So I think both of those insights are deeply important. For both of you, I mean, you both buy in as scaled franchise owners in the way that you've entered the system. Are you still thinking about scaling? Do you think about the next location? Do you have a process that goes into those decisions? Elizabeth, you first.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I did buy into kind of 2 centers that were already up and running. But I also then have, scaled already within the first 2.5 years and opened my 3rd center. And I was able to open that 3rd center with the profits from my first 2 centers. So I did not have to put in additional capital for that. So that was great. And that's been a learning process as well, because, going through, starting kind of from scratch in an area that, while they've heard of Sylvan, they know Sylvan, it isn't established in that area. So you do have to put a lot more money in marketing and building up your name recognition, in the area. So I am still looking to grow and scale. Personally, I'd like to invest in satellite locations within my current territory. So that's kind of on the long-term outlook. I will say that, I think for me, going and maybe this is my risk averse nature. I like to go at a slow pace and have everything, working really well. For example, in my newer center before I look to expand out in my next, location. So that's me. Slow and steady wins the race.
I love it.
You say that, however, you had to navigate COVID right at the beginning of this. So risk versus thrown out the window when you had to do that.
Yeah, that's true. It was a crazy time. It was a crazy time to just step into this world. But it was a time that, Sylvan proved their worth, because they definitely stepped in and kind of partnered with us to figure out how, what we could do and to give, support us every step of the way.
Mike, scale? Are you like, what's your mindset around scale?
Yeah.
And you've been through this before, so with other brands.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and by the way, Elizabeth, kudos to you getting through that starting in January 2020. And then here we are 2 years later and you're already, that's awesome. Love hearing that, by the way. So congrats on that. Scale on it. Yeah, so I purchased 5 locations originally, and then we purchased 2 more, went to 7, and then we've since opened 3. So we're at 10 now. And it's at a good chaos level where my team, and so as Elizabeth said, she's at a point where she likes to keep it slow and steady. So I've had to build a team around me so they help keep me slow and steady. Else I'll just keep wanting to expand. So I have a really good team in place right now. So we talk about these things, and we're at a point where the 10 that we have, we're going to build them up to get them really healthy and really stable. And then we'll look to slowly expand a bit more. And there's a few in the market that we can acquire, and then there's a few new locations we can open. So I do anticipate somewhere in the neighborhood of another 3 to 6, depending on how it goes. But currently, we're at a good spot. We're going to make these stable and healthy, and we've built a good team around us so that we're going to do it together versus me just setting the pole out and saying, let's just go do all this. So that's kind of where we're at on the scale end.
Out of curiosity, and it's probably a longer discussion, but when I've studied multi-unit operators, there's a point, whether it's 5 units or it's 7 units, where the profitability tumbles significantly because the amount of resources has to almost regenerate. You almost turn to a startup again. Did that happen somewhere between 5 and 10 units where you're like, well, wait a second, all of our profit's gone because we have to go get staff up to scale? Or how did you navigate that?
Yeah, that's super intuitive, by the way. I would say it definitely happened around 7, and we're probably on the backside of that now. I would say we went through just the last 2.5 years of where that was, the profit was tumbled. But, I made my team and the bankers all aware of what we were doing. And I said, look, it's going to be some losses and some break evens. But I think starting in 2023 for us and onward is where the fruit is going to bear. Those are tough years because you're basically back to a startup. You're spending so much on resources and staffing and putting things into place and equipment and all that stuff. And I'm excited for the future ahead, and I think we're at that point. So we're on the backside of it. Good question.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like I'm an awful drawer, but if it was a lightning bolt, it's like that, because it goes down for a little bit, but the reality is the value of the business skyrockets beyond that. So that's
100%.
It's good for me to know down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to think about because, again, both of you are multi-unit operators. I would say majority of franchisees that get into systems, like, let's get my feet wet. Let me open up one. You guys had the opportunities to buy existing locations, so it seeds the market a little bit differently. But I mean, like that's part of scaling the business. Now, I'm thinking about exit or thinking about the long term here. I mean, you guys bought successful businesses or businesses that had some value at the end of the lifeline for the previous franchise owner, where they don't just shut their doors and throw away the keys. Like, there was value. They got paid on the way out. And that's part of the value of being a part of a franchise system, is they had an asset at the end of this. Do either of you think about the long-term asset? Did any of the noise of private equity buying up, for even family offices buying up franchisees, set your mindset that we can build a fairly viable business that can be exited at some point? Does that thought ever come into either of your guys' minds? Elizabeth, you can go first.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I feel like I'm just at the beginning stages of still being in the business. But absolutely. I mean, I do think about that. And, I do feel that I'm building something that can hopefully be resold and hopefully at a profit from what I bought it for. So, I intend to do better than they were doing and expand and that kind of thing. So, that's all part of the retirement plan. I mean, it's important. And so, I certainly hope to be able to do that. I haven't put a lot of thought into, is there a strategy on that? I do think it has a lot to do with what's happening in the market at the time being. So, hopefully, when that time comes, conditions will be favorable, because I think it does come down to that.
Mike?
Yeah, I think that's a great question for everyone even to consider when you're looking at a franchise, because from day one, I had a goal of it and something I thought about even before I bought it. And I think everyone should go into it thinking, how do I want to exit? And the two, to me, there's the 2 ways: buy it and then sell it for a profit based on what you paid. And sometime in the future, for me, I'm a buy and hold kind of guy, so I don't intend on selling. I prefer to reap the cash flow from the business and then parlay that into some other things. And then along with that, it was a goal from day one for me to bring some of my team into the ownership lanes from sweat equity standpoint. That's helped me keep some of my key managers, and it's brought them into our vision and mission. And it's really built us as this really awesome, cohesive team. And I have no problem sharing the wealth in that regard, and it makes us a stronger team and company. And so that's the future is, they're going to be part of it. And what aspect that may be, whether it's, 5%, 20% or whatever it ends up being, but I do intend to hold it. So.
Yeah, I love both of your insights. I mean, the reality is I've seen franchisees that call it house poor, and that's probably the wrong term, but they go use all the profits to buy things to support their lifestyle. And it's not wrong, but when you're thinking about the long term, now the investments that you make in people, obviously giving them equity or bringing them in as a partner, or even into marketing operations, et cetera, like it's all built on building something that's much larger than what you have at the moment. And just even considering that in the process to say, can I scale this to be a viable business that has an exit, or can I look at the business and say, I don't have to pull out every single dollar out of it to spend on my lifestyle, because like Elizabeth, you said, I'm building up my retirement fund. I'm building up my nest egg. So I think those are deeply valuable. So let's end on this. Mike, you can go first, and Elizabeth, you can take us home. Anybody that's watching this, advice that you would have for them as a prospective franchisee looking at this system or another system, what would you advise them to do if you had to give that one nugget of franchising or becoming a successful franchise owner?
Yeah. So for me, I wasn't a detail guy, but you have to put that hat on when you're vetting the franchises. You have to go in, you have to dig deep. Just tell yourself this is a research project. I have to go in with an open and transparent mind and just dig into the details. I'm a visionary at heart and an entrepreneur at heart. A lot of times the details get passed by, but you have to understand what you're getting into. I think when Elizabeth talked about the capital side, I think that's ultra important. You have to understand what the financial side and the financial commitment is, and then understand the inner workings. Am I going to get the support? What am I getting myself into on a day-to-day, week-to-week, compared to what my future goals are? So, and the leap of faith, I do want to end on that. I know it is really hard for people. Even for me, I'm a high risk taker, but it still was a leap. And you just have to have faith and grow wings on the way down. I stand by that. So we're all in.
Elizabeth?
Well, I was just going to say, finding a brand and a service or product, something that you feel personally represents you and that you feel good about, I think goes a long way towards your ultimate happiness and success in anything that you do in life. I mean, we all want to feel good about our job, and that makes it easier to go to work every day. So, making sure that you kind of align with whatever the company's mission and purpose is important. And then I would also say, kind of going back to the financial piece of it, it's really hard. It's hard to get all the information you need to kind of put together a financial plan, if you will, a P&L, to really understand the business. And, those little nuggets and components aren't really fully given to you. You have to do the work. You have to sit down and line by line, think about it, and, go think outside the box as to, you're given these 10 things you need to think about. What other things do you need to think about? So for example, they might be talking about operationally, you have your staff and you have your rent and you have your marketing spend, but guess what? You need an accountant at some point, probably, especially if you're going to be a multi-unit owner. Are you thinking about that? Just expenses like that maybe aren't, part of the discussion that you're having with any franchise company. You do need to kind of think about all of those expenses, and again, make sure you're appropriately capitalized.
Well, that's a great piece of advice for anybody that's going through the due diligence and talking with franchise owners. Ask them what some of the hidden expenses were so that they can plan on that, which should, again, if you come to the table properly capitalized, or you buy something that doesn't tap you out from here's how much money I have to invest in a business, then at least you have some of those rainy day funds to invest in things that might come up or surprises along the way, or assets or support structures that you need. So
Right.
That's awesome. So, I mean, both of you, I really enjoyed this conversation. I like talking about this stuff, and obviously you guys have navigated and found success. So I appreciate both of you for spending some time with me.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thanks
Nick. Nice to meet you, Mike.
You as well.
Take
Talk
care, guys.
soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.